Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Peace, love, and positivity to you. My name is Sohum, and today I'll be reacting to 3 more tracks by the Bee Gees. We're fairly early on in the Bee Gees' journey on this channel, so any song really that we listen to them is going to contribute to a large part of our understanding of this group. And the first song we're going to be checking out is titled How Deep Is Your Love? And I was just taking a look at the video on YouTube just before even getting into it, and I saw that this video has amassed over 780 million views, which is a mind-boggling number. And for me, I am not one who really cares about view numbers all that much, not really for my own channel or just in general. I view views as just a signal of overall interest rather than the actual quality of the content or the song. But 780 million is a number that you just simply cannot ignore. I really wonder what kind of special sauce exists in How Deep Is Your Love that maybe other songs of theirs doesn't quite catch that same amount of lightning in a bottle, or just music in general. 780 million, there are few songs that can say they have hit those streaming numbers, and that is just on YouTube. That is not record sales, that is not Spotify streams, that is not insert 50 other items there. So really excited to be checking these 3 tracks out today. But before we do, a massive thank you goes to Russell for making this Bee Gees request and for bringing more of their stuff to the channel. Now, my friends, let's jump into it. That atmosphere, a cloud of voices.
I know your eyes in the morning sun. I feel you touch me in the pouring rain. And the moment that you wander far from me, I wanna feel you in my arms again. And you come to me on a summer breeze, keep me warm in your love. Then you softly leave, and it's me.
Why is I love how Maurice is just deadpan, just walking with them, not singing, not opening his mouth at all.
Warm in your love, then you softly
But I'm just here for the ride.
And it's me you need to show. How deep is your love? Is your love? How deep is your love?
He adds in those lows.
I really need to learn, 'cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. I believe in you.
This is like listening to a warm hug. It's so comforting when all of their voices kind of dance with one another, creating this really thick atmosphere. It's the exact thing you want when you're cold, when you're feeling a little down. You just want to be completely enveloped in this musical womb of sorts.
On to you and me. I believe in you. You know the door to my very soul. You're the light in my deepest darkest.
Also really pronounced bass and
You're
all
my
this.
savior when I fall.
The bulk of the melodic movement is in that bass.
You may not think I care for you when you know down inside that I really do. And it's me you need to show. How deep is your love? Is your love? How deep is your love? I really need to learn, 'cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. La, 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 la. La, 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 la.
na-na-nas are in. You don't even need language, just sing along. Just enjoy the beauty and the melody.
Come to me on a summer breeze.
That's really, really pretty. I think this whole song can be distilled into one key word: atmosphere. And if you hear me repeat that over and over again, I apologize. It's something that often happens when you have musical groups with multiple vocalists. In this case, we have three brothers with very similar timbres. When they sing, it's as if their voices just seamlessly fuse together. And it's those qualities that, if you just have it just so naturally, other groups, other bands, they crave to be able to create something like that, but have to go through the painstaking effort of editing everything in the mix, figuring out how do we match each of these levels. But the thing is, you don't have to do any of that if it all just happens organically, which is exactly how the Bee Gees sound here. It just feels like their voices are perfectly slotted for each other. And then all of these grand moments where you hear the swelling in the volume, it all comes to a head. It all kind of consumes your body, because it's just the very natural thing to feel in that moment, where it is completely cathartic, completely cohesive, and just lovely. Listen to this melody. It is so lovely.
We belong to you and me. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. When you come to me on a summer breeze, keep me warm in your love and your softly rain. When it's me you need to show.
Oh,
How deep is your love? Is your love? How deep is your love?
oh, Barry, dude. I love when he goes into those highs.
'Cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me.
That is catchy.
How deep is your love? How deep is your love? I really mean to love. 'Cause
Listen to how his vibrato there, how Barry, he held that thin note, he just let it extend, he let it kind of cone out, and eventually it thins and starts to waver and then wanes. It is all very human when he does something like that. The oscillation in his vibrato, then fitting and disappearing.
'Cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. How deep is your love? How deep is your love? I really mean to love. 'Cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should.
Wow. I love the melody in that song. But even above the melody, it's that atmosphere. I think that's where so much of the emotional pull and drive comes from. Because when their voices fit together like that, then they sing the melody, then the layering happens, then the strings come in, that bass, that moving kind of melodic floor that has been foundational for them. All of those pieces give you a very well structured track. One specific point that I'll make about Maurice than Barry: when Maurice wasn't singing up front, it was more like funny at the beginning, because just watching him walk. But then the moment he comes in, you can tell very quickly what his role is within this trio, which is to kind of provide that lower frequency, that lower register. I don't think he's going as low as your average bass singer would. In like a choir, he's more in that baritone range, I think slightly below where my speaking voice is right now. And when you have someone like Barry, who he is very willing to sing in that higher range, one that is, for me and other baritones, a little bit of a scarier place to venture off into. Because for me to sing in that range, you have to be warmed up. You have to be able to weather some of the pulling and tearing apart of your voice. Like for me, for example, if I ever try to get into that higher range without warming up, you're going to hear my voice crack all over the place. And in fact, it'll probably sound so shrill, you may immediately turn off my performance of a song like this. But Barry, his voice, I think, is more in that like baritone, baritenor kind of a range. And so when he sings, he's just effortlessly there. The member that I have trouble, I guess, positioning between Maurice and Barry is Robin. I'll have to pay more attention to how his voice fits in and what role it plays, because he may just be the glue that ties those ranges together. But all that to say, what a beautiful song. I love songs just about love, about how we feel things very deeply, despite the circumstances around us maybe not allowing us to feel those things from our logical brains. But our emotional side doesn't shut off because we think we don't need to feel something, or vice versa. We are multifaceted in this regard. So I think if you feel something, feel it deeply. And love is one of those things we just ought to feel. We ought to feel deeply about. We owe it to ourselves. Beautiful song. I understand why it became as popular as it did. Very warming, very romantic. I feel like this is the kind of song that you would just love to put on at like a candlelight dinner, kind of quiet in the background. Love is in the air. Let's jump into the next one here. This one is titled You Win Again. Dare I say more industrial, just punchy up front.
Couldn't give me what everybody needs. I shouldn't let you take me when I'm down, my baby. Find out everybody knows that you've been using me. I'm surprised you let me stay around you. One day you're gonna lift the cover and look inside your heart. We got a little bit before we go.
This beat is like an engine to this song, with each punch being a version of a regimented step in a march towards love, towards understanding, towards whatever it needs to be. Very, very different than what you heard in the first track here. I almost feel like this song is entirely led by the rhythm, and the melodic movement just kind of dances around each of those hits. I wonder if at any point they're going to steer away from this these punches in the song.
I'm gonna break down your defenses one by one.
it's all of the lyrics here are supporting this kind of movement towards breaking down someone's potentially emotional defenses, all of the things that keep them kind of guarded, which in a relationship it's very necessary to be able to see the real you, not just the facade that can often be placed. And easier said than done. And it's interesting that his approach is to, instead of like opening himself up, like presumably he feels already open, his fortress laid bare, his efforts are towards breaking down the barriers of someone else. And I feel like it has a sort of good sentiment around it, but also strategically may not work, because oftentimes when you're pointing at somebody else and saying, hey, you need to change, think about how hard it is for us to change ourselves. To point the finger at somebody else and say, hey, you need to change, you need to open up, you need to do all those things, even if on the surface you are correct, it may not be received the way you would like it to. You better beware. It's almost as if it's like positioned as a threat. It's like, hey, I'm going to break down all of those barriers, so just beware.
One day when you fall, I can never let you cast aside the greatest love of all. There's no fight you can't fight. This battle has done with me. You win again. So little time, we do nothing but recovery. There's no life on earth, no other could see me through. You win again. So never try, but if anybody can, we can. And I'll be following you. Oh, girl. You win again. So little time, we do nothing but recovery. There's no life on earth, no other could see me through. You win again. So never try, but if anybody can, we can. And I'll be
Oh, the layering there. Beautiful.
You win again. So little time, we do nothing but recovery. There's no life on earth, no other could see me through. You win again. So never try, but if anybody can, we can. There's no fight you can't fight. This battle
This is so catchy.
you win again. So little time, we do nothing but recovery. There's no life on earth, no other could see me through. You win again. So never try, but if anybody can.
Beautiful. I love that song. Super catchy once again. Definitely taking a different approach to love in this one. It seems like the winning again in this context has to do with the other person kind of removing themselves from the relationship. And I think it should be said here, but if any of your relationships end up being some kind of zero-sum game where whenever you feel better, the other person is just objectively feeling worse and vice versa, because the things that make you feel loved are at the cost of somebody else, that is a red flag. You should both be winning in this situation. There really is no competition when it comes to relationships, when it comes to love. And if that is the paradigm that's set, well, someone has to then lose. But that's not the playing field that we have to play on anyways. Every disagreement that exists between two people, where it feels like we're not understood or we have different preferences, I truly believe that there is always a creative and collaborative solution that has both people winning. Because what do I want? What do they want? We both want to improve our current state, our current circumstances, the best way we know how. And I'll know, to some extent, the best way for myself. My partner will also be able to advocate for themselves. generally speaking, these things don't have to be at odds with one another unless there's a true impasse, which in that case, there's I think, a different kind of discussion to be had. But I think the overall, again, playing field is one where we can both win. That is on the table. I can be selfless for someone who I love, because if I'm not selfless for them, who am I going to be selfless for? It's so important. The most important decision we can make in our lives is who we choose to love, who we choose to spend our lives with. And wouldn't you want to make their lives just the best it can be? Both of you having that attitude means that the relationship doesn't take from you. It doesn't draw and extract endlessly. It actually fills your cup. It fills your emotional well, to the extent that both of you acting independently would be worse off rather than when compared to the example of you two acting interdependently and raising each other's floors. The moment where the interaction between you two and your dynamic makes you both worse off, or one more worse off than the other, I think that's a sign something is wrong. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. But this was a fun song, definitely a different stylistic approach, away from the harmonious ballad into something that is more of an engine, more with kind of a deliberate punch, as I described those beats each go around. And that kind of beat, you wouldn't imagine it goes with a song about love and being tied together. It feels more forceful, and I think that actually works really well with the lyrics in this song. You want this kind of forceful feel to match the forceful affect in these lyrics, because the narrator here wants to do everything in their power to batter down these walls, because if the walls weren't there to begin with, maybe you would have a healthy relationship, but again, you can't change somebody else. They have to be willing to change, and if that's not on the table, one needs to ask themselves, is this situation tenable? And again, to speak on the melody here, but really fun melody, a lot of movement in this one. I feel like this track has, you'd have a little bit more difficulty remembering the melody, but once you kind of get it, then it's like a set it and forget it kind of thing. Whereas I feel like with the first track, you can kind of get the melody more quickly, and may be a reason why it was more popular. Seemingly, it's a little bit more accessible to a mainstream audience. But let's check out the final song of the day. This one is Fanny Be Tender with My Love.
First I rise, then I fall. Seems like you don't want the love of this man at all. And it's sure been a tough time, right up to the time I met you.
Beautiful.
So if you take a love like mine, it's tender, but it's not love. You know how easy it is to love me. Fanny be tender, but it's not love. 'Cause it's all that I've got, and my love won't desert me. So you said to yourself, boy, you're out of your brain. Do you think I'm gonna stand you all night in the rain?
Oh, did you hear that flute? I think I heard flute in there. Yeah.
It's the start of a love affair. The moment when I first met you, and if you want, I'll take you there. Be tender with my love.
in all of these moments, there's like one of their voices in the forefront, but usually there is a higher voice in the background, which is funny because oftentimes in the mix you may want to emphasize the higher voice because that may sound like the more impressive thing. But here it's the other way around, where you hear the, let's say, more chest voice sound up front in your headphones, and further back are those higher notes, and that contrast between foreground and background with the factor of pitch creates this really unique soundscape. There's a lot of depth to vocal harmony when something like that is done. Bee Gees, they are a master at weaving these different pitches with the arrangement in this mix. Are a big fan of the fade out. That was amazing. I love the layering, that whole section. I mean, I guess it's improper to call it a section because it was just like 3/4 of the song, them just dancing in that nice melodic range, pushing the highs on Barry's end, really powerful and sustained in the mids with Maurice. Still trying to figure out where Robin is at. If I had to like take a stab at positioning him, I would say he's a mix of both of those members. I think it would be fair to say like 70% Barry, 30% Maurice. But truly, I'm very curious to hear what your perspectives are on each of the Gibbs brothers. What role do you feel like each of them individually play and how that kind of pairs with the other brothers? That's kind of how I'm viewing it. In terms of like vocal range, we've got Barry, we've got Robin, we've got Maurice, and they kind of together contribute to the entirety of the depth melodically in their music. I don't think we have very low lows in these songs. What we heard, I believe in the second track, was a more pronounced bass, but even that bass, to be honest, was closer to what we heard Maurice singing than something that's even lower. Like if I were to use my metal brain for a second to think of a song that's in like a drop B tuning, you know, we normally tune our guitars to the standard E tuning. Drop D, you just lower the low E from E to D, and then you just keep transposing every single string lower and lower. That is like, I don't know, 3 more half steps down. You can create these very earthy, powerful, gurgly tones. I'm obviously talking about metal, so that's where some of that comes from, but in Bee Gees music, they don't often opt for those low lows. And I wonder if that means they're leaving some part of their composition on the table. Like, is there something more that we could ask for in their songs? Because it often feels like if it's just their voice and consideration, they already do so much. But with some of those strings, some of the synth sounds, and the bass, a bit of their notes get a bit muddier. And the expectation is if we had picked a lower frequency bass, would we be able to more cleanly hear the ways in which each of their voices fit together? That all to say, I know there's a difference in recording quality because of the eras that we're hearing these tracks from versus the recording quality of songs that come out today. But I love the way their voices fit together. I love the melodies that they choose. And I guess the last thing I'll mention about this song here, Fanny Be Tender with My Love, is about its meaning. And there was a lyric very early on that kind of stuck out to me. I don't know if I'll be able to recite it precisely, but it had to do with his sensitivity and then wanting to be loved gently, which is, in large part what the entirety of this song is. And for me, I have always been a rather sensitive person. It is, I think, I want to say it's a blessing and a curse, but oftentimes it can feel a bit more of a curse before the blessing part. And I, in my own mind, try to reconcile, like, how can I make my sensitivities serve me better than often they feel like they do? Because sometimes if I'm feeling more sensitive, if I'm feeling slighted or just emotionally ambiguous, that can take away from other parts of my life. It can be hard for me to compartmentalize. And if there was a way, maybe you guys know strategically how to do this, but if there was a way to be sensitive and somehow lean into that to pay off, you'll have to let me know what that is. I've always felt vulnerable to be, or scared to be vulnerable, I guess I can say. But the times where I've lent into my vulnerability, I've actually felt more power over my situation. So maybe that's what it has to be. I am sensitive, and therefore I put my sensitivity out there, because those who respect the sensitivity, well, those are the right people for me. And there is a double-edged sword to this. There is a bit of a trade-off too, because my sensitivity cannot be the only thing that is on the cards, because that can take up a lot of emotional space. And in the context of a relationship, it's okay for you to have sensitivities, but it is not okay for those sensitivities to override the emotional space needed for somebody else to feel understood and heard as well. Because you can imagine if I'm sensitive about everything, well, all of a sudden I've positioned myself as a bit of a minefield for somebody else to kind of traverse. So I feel like I look at it in two ways. One is to lean into sensitivity, but another is to also sort of mitigate the overall effect so that you are functional and can be calloused to some of the things that were previously extremely sensitive. And I think that is maybe a better kind of combination approach, because let's say you're sensitive about the tone that somebody uses in conversation. Well, that doesn't, like, if somebody else, a stranger, uses that same tone with you, they may not be meaning it the way that you're taking it. And you have to be able to, over time, realize that this just may be what's happening. It is not all about you. Bringing it all back to the song Fanny Be Tender with My Love, you can be a little bit more open and upfront about how it is you're feeling in your inner world in a relationship. That's exactly what it's meant to be for, but it's not going to omit the entirety of your own responsibility for regulating yourself. I feel like this song touches more on the former rather than the latter, but it's a complicated situation. There's no easy way to distill all of this stuff. We kind of have to do our best day in, day out. But at a high level, all these three songs about love, super enjoyable to listen to. I think the catchiest song was certainly the first track, and I honestly really loved all of the melodies and layering in this third track. So I would probably order it like that: number 1, number 3, then number 2. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed the reaction, and if you would like to request more BGs yourself on the channel, you can do so by hitting the first link in the description box below or scanning the QR code on your screen. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care and peace.